The old cabin nestled deep in the woods was quiet, save for the soft hum of cicadas outside. The late afternoon sun streamed through the open windows, casting golden rays across the wooden floor. A gentle breeze carried the scent of pine and wildflowers, mingling with the faint aroma of coffee from the pot I'd brewed earlier. It had been years since I'd seen him, but now, sitting in this familiar place, memories seemed to hang in the air as if no time had passed at all. I glanced at the clock on the wall, its rhythmic ticking a reminder of the minutes slipping by. My heart beat faster than I cared to admit, a mixture of anticipation and nerves stirring within me. I hadn't expected to feel this way, so unsteady, so uncertain. But there it was. The knock at the door startled me, a soft but deliberate sound that broke the quiet. I stood, smoothing my hands over my shirt, and opened the door to find him standing there. "Hey, stranger," Luca said, his voice warm, his smile easy. The sunlight caught the strands of his dark hair, damp with sweat from the summer heat, and the warmth of the day had brought a light flush to his cheeks. Luca. His name felt foreign and familiar all at once. I stepped aside and he entered, bringing the scent of the sun-baked outdoors with him. He looked around, his eyes lingering on the framed photographs on the mantel, the bookshelves filled with the same paperbacks we'd loved as teenagers. "Nothing's changed," he said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "It's like stepping into a time capsule." I chuckled, closing the door. "Not much has. Except us, I guess." He turned to me then, his gaze steady. "Yeah," he said, his tone quieter. "Except us." We eased into the evening as though no time had passed, talking and laughing over old memories. The cabin seemed to wrap around us, cocooning us in its warmth. We prepared dinner together, falling into an old rhythm I didn't realize I'd missed. By the time we settled onto the worn couch, 2 glasses of iced tea between us, the weight of years apart felt lighter. But even as we talked, I noticed the moments of silence between us. They weren't awkward, far from it, but they were charged, as if the air held something unspoken. When our hands brushed as he passed me my glass, a spark danced across my skin. I caught him watching me, his gaze soft, almost searching, and I felt my pulse quicken. "Do you remember the time we got caught in that summer storm?" Luca asked suddenly, breaking the silence. I laughed, the memory vivid. How could I forget? "You tried to convince me that lightning wouldn't strike if we stayed under that old gazebo." He grinned. "And I was right, wasn't I? You were lucky. Or maybe we were." His voice was quieter now, and when I looked at him, there was something in his eyes that made my chest tighten. The room felt smaller somehow, the golden glow of the setting sun casting warm shadows across his face. The silence stretched again, but this time it felt heavy, expectant. I hesitated, unsure of what to say, unsure of what he was thinking. "Coming back here," he said finally, his voice low. "It makes me realize how much I've missed this." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling over me. "Yeah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Me too." The words hung between us, and in that moment, I knew there was no going back. He shifted closer, the space between us shrinking until I could feel the warmth radiating from him. His hand rested on the couch, so close to mine that our fingers were almost touching. My breath hitched as I glanced down, and then, almost without thinking, I let my fingers graze his. He stilled, his gaze flickering to mine, and I saw the hesitation there, the vulnerability he was trying to hide. Slowly, he turned his hand over, his palm facing up, an invitation as much as a question. I placed my hand in his, and his fingers curled around mine, firm and steady. The simple gesture sent a wave of warmth through me, grounding me in the moment. "I wasn't sure," he began, his voice trailing off. He looked down at our joined hands, a small, self-conscious smile tugging at his lips. I wasn't sure you'd feel the same. I do, I said, the words coming easier than I expected. I always have. The admission hung in the air, but instead of feeling exposed, I felt free. Luca's smile softened, and he shifted closer, his knee brushing mine. The soft, golden light danced in his eyes as he studied me, and I felt like he was seeing me for the first time. Or maybe finally seeing what had been there all along. "Can I?" he started, his voice hesitant. I nodded before he could finish, and he leaned in, his lips brushing mine in a kiss that was as gentle as it was certain. It was unhurried, filled with a quiet intensity that made my chest ache. His hand moved to cradle my face, his thumb brushing lightly against my cheek, and I felt myself melt into him. When we pulled back, his forehead rested against mine, and we shared a quiet laugh, the sound soft and intimate. "This feels," he paused, searching for the right word. "Right." "It does," I agreed, my voice steady. "It always has." The night stretched on, and we stayed close, talking in hushed tones, our fingers intertwined. There was no rush, no urgency, just the quiet certainty that we were finally where we were meant to be. As the stars appeared outside, he pulled me into his arms, and I rested my head against his shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breath. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. The weight of unspoken words, of missed opportunities, had lifted, leaving only the quiet joy of the moment. The cabin seemed to hold its breath around us, as if it, too, understood the significance of this night. When the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, I stirred, blinking against the soft glow. Luca was still beside me, his arms wrapped around me, his face peaceful in sleep. I smiled, the sight of him filling me with a warmth that chased away any lingering doubt. He stirred then, his eyes fluttering open, and when he saw me, his lips curved into a sleepy smile. "Morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning," I replied, my voice soft. For a moment, we simply looked at each other, the quiet intimacy of the moment speaking louder than any words could. And as I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. Here, in the warmth of his embrace, I had found what I hadn't realized I'd been searching for all along, a sense of belonging, of home. And as the day began, I held on to that quiet certainty, knowing that this was just the beginning of something beautiful.